divorced parents and tax returns, and the FAFSA. It can be really confusing. Now, one of the questions I've received recently is about tax filing status. It's not uncommon for divorced parents to trade off deducting the student on their tax return, right? Like one parent gets the kid 1 year and then the other parent gets the kid the next year, and they go back and forth. I've seen that a lot. Not that uncommon, but does it make a difference for FAFSA? The short answer actually is no. What FAFSA looks at is household size, which is driven off of the dependent's claim on the filing parent's tax return, but you can override that household size number by manually inputting the correct number if the tax return dependents do not reflect what the actual household size is. So it really doesn't matter who claims who, right, or who claims the kid. What's actually more important is who's supposed to file the FAFSA. And this is where a lot of confusion occurs, because the rule used to be a couple years ago, the parent with whom the child lived with the majority of the year. But that's not the case anymore. Now it is the parent who provided the majority of financial support for the student. Now, the problem with that is financial support's not really defined in the regulations. So what does that even mean? Well, it means several things. It can mean who pays whom child support or alimony. That is a factor, but it's not necessarily the deciding factor. Can also be which parent the child lives with. Again, a factor, though not the deciding factor. And also the income of the two parents. A factor, but not the deciding factor. As a general rule of thumb, if both parents, divorced parents, make relatively similar income amounts, then the filing parent is going to be the parent who the child lives with, because the value of providing housing for that child is considered financial support. The real question comes in when there's a huge disparity between the income between the two parents. So let's say, stereotypically, kid lives with mom, but mom just works, let's say, a part-time job, making very little money. Dad lives separately. He makes a ton of money. He pays child support and or alimony to mom. Well, I just said that the value of the housing provided does count as support, and that is true. But if mom basically relies on the child support and or alimony to even maintain the house, meaning almost all the money she has comes from dad in this example, then dad's the one who really provides the majority of financial support, because essentially in that hypothetical example, all of mom's money or most of mom's money comes from dad. All right. Also, in the cases of those parents who have remarried, the step parent does not count in that calculation. So again, taking that same example, mom and dad are divorced, kid lives with mom makes very little money on her own, but mom has since remarried to a new spouse, and the new spouse makes millions of dollars a year or something, right? Well, the fact that the new spouse makes all that money is actually irrelevant for the purposes of determining who provides more financial support. It's still based on mom or dad, regardless of whether they're married or not. Now, that's kind of really complicated, right? If you think about everything I just said. So some schools interpret this as they'll just look at which parent makes more money, and that's the parent who provides the majority of financial support, right? Because that's an easier test, if you will. You can just look at W-2s, who had the bigger number, boom, there you go, done, end of story. But not all schools interpret that way, and nor are schools required to interpret that way, but they are allowed to interpret that way. So this can really vary. So that means for some schools, one parent might be the filing parent, but then another school, it could actually be the other parent that's a filing parent. So it is confusing. But that's what it is. But as far as tax filing status on part of student, whether the student is independent, the way that they file taxes, or the student's claimed by one parent versus the other, those things do not matter for the purposes of FAFSA. So I hope this clears it up somewhat. I know it's about as clear as mud, I understand, but those are basically how the rules work. Have a great week. And again, if you have questions or comments, please put them in the comments below. And if you have a question, make sure to comment and I may answer your question in a future episode. As always, stay safe, stay healthy, and we'll see you next time.